blood everywhere. The head of this femme train. Oh my god. Oh my god, it's dying. Oh my god, there's blood everywhere. Ah! El Newso from El Britannico, Reform is fucking killing it. Holy shit.
Let's look at the overall results. And here we have the clear lead for Reform UK. There it is, 321 gains. To be honest, they weren't defending any seats. They weren't really in the game at this set of elections last time around. Here is the bad news for Labour. They're on 219 seats, but they were on a lot more because they've lost 235. They are by far and away the biggest losers of the night. The Tories also...
That is barbaric. That loss is actually barbaric.
Losers on 140, down 146, leaving them with 194. We haven't yet seen any kind of green surge. They're up a little bit on 48, but I think
very sad about Greens. Like, English people, what's fucking wrong with you guys? The Green campaign is very decent. The head of the Greens is very, very, very decent.
All of the Green heartlands, frankly, are yet to come. The Liberal Democrats up 52. They've also lost 13. So let's look at the loss rate. Now, this is the proportion of seats that Labour are defending that they have gone on to win and lose. So they have basically kept about a third of them, lost 66%. And if you compare that to last year, it's pretty much even Stevens. Last year, everyone thought that the local elections were pretty much a disaster. I think they'll think that again. If you look at this, it shows where Michael Thrasher, Sky's election analyst, thinks this sits. He's projecting the results that we've got at the moment and on a dotted line to where he thinks will end up on the gauge. And you can see we're not in good, we're not in okay, we're not in bad. We are quite far into terrible. He thinks that on the current trend, we are just short of the 2,000 loss mark. So that is a pretty bad result. That is Michael Thrasher's prediction, 1,864 losses, and that is his prediction as of 5:45 this morning with 428 seats declared. Let's look at the Tories now. Last year, they held on to just about 32% of their seats. They lost 68% of them. Actually, it looks from this as if the Tories are doing a little bit better. They've managed to lose 44%, hanging on just over 60%. So slightly better. Let's look at Michael Thrasher's projection for them. And they're not in good territory. They're not in okay. They're just on the cusp of okay and bad. The overall total, minus 599. So Michael has looked at 291 seats declared. This is his projection, the dotted line through from where we are at the moment to where he thinks we'll end up at 5:45 a.m. And he thinks that we are somewhere between okay and bad. I have to say, I think the Tories would take that because that's an improvement on last year. But all over the what we would have called the red wall, Labour, one-time Labour heartlands, what you have seen is Reform UK winning. And here we are in Hartlepool. Hartlepool, pretty important place in British politics. Lord Mandelson's old stomping ground. Keir Starmer nearly resigned when Labour didn't win that seat in 2021. And look, you've got losses by Labour and the Conservatives, 7 losses and 4 losses respectively, and Reform picking up 12 seats. That means that Labour have lost the council to no overall control, but that's partly because not all seats were up. What I want to show you is what that looks like visually. Just the seats that were up compared to the last time they were up. And look at this. So in 2022, you could see more rural seats, all Conservative, Labour, closer in the more urban areas. But look at this. In 2026, absolutely all
holy fucking shit, Reform has this country by the balls. This is it, fucking it.
Reform UK, light blue. It's quite the picture. And then you go to other bits of the Red Wall and the north of England, and it's pretty similar. Look at this. Greater Manchester, Wigan, home to Lisa Nandy, not that far from Angela Rayner, part of Andy Burnham's empire. Red in 2023, Reform UK blue.
Literally, why though? Okay, it's because the economic situation is exceptionally unstable. The neocons were in government for a very long time. They basically did nothing to improve the situation. You had multiple prime ministers going in and out of government. People got tired of the conservative government, and they elected Labour because Labour basically offered them change. Once Labour got into power, though, they followed through on basically nothing that they promised. And the promises were very, very small. They turned into basically a red Tory party, pretty much. But from the perspective of somebody that doesn't engage in politics the way that we do, they basically voted for Labour because they hoped certain change would come. Absolutely no change came. And then you have Reform, which is saying they're going to do massive change. So you basically just extend your hopes and link it to Reform. Of course, then you have the other contingent that votes for Reform because they're extremely bigoted and they identify economic and cultural problems that plague the UK. Apparently plague the UK with immigration and foreigners, etc., etc. So they vote on the basis of just reactionary sentiment. At the end of the day, the big growth is a relatively similar reason that MAGA grew in the States as well, which is we're not like the others. We're not neocons, we're not libs, we're not filthy commies, and we actually want to do something to this country. We want to impact it heavily. We're done with the status quo. Let's fucking go. That's what they're doing. The only true competition came from the Greens that had attempted to utilize this massive indignation and lack of satisfaction that British people feel over how they're being governed, but without the bigoted pitch. Unfortunately, for very obvious reasons, voting Green is city slickers' electoral choice. You can't. It's difficult to do rural areas as a Green, even though they did have some successes, but still. Yeah, Reform comes in. This is exactly the type of party, reactionary party, that you would expect to come in and sweep up things when there is a very real and serious crisis of governance, because they're saying that change is going to come through them. And of course, they tickle your racist bone as well. UK will just keep getting more racist and anti-immigration as the plebs' living standards continue to decline to their historical norm of serfdom. To an extent, yes, but it's going to be funny because they're going to grow more racist, but they will not be able to kick anyone out because they will collapse even quicker if they do so. Because the UK at this point is almost as diverse of a country as the United States is. You can't start kicking out. Even institutions of power, even reactionary and right-wing institutions of power already have people that are, of course, British, but non-white British, right? Non-Anglo-Saxon British. It is so diverse that you genuinely have Indian and African and so on heritage in British people that are in Reform, are integrated in all aspects of British reactionary perspective. You have second, third generation immigrant Brits that fucking hate first generation immigrant Brits and so on, etc., etc. So what I'm trying to say. It's very funny how they will continuously run on newer and newer ideas of what it means not to be British, because they will have to. His electorate is already so absurdly diverse that they will have to, ethnically diverse, that they will have to play the ethnicities against each other, which they absolutely fucking do. Yeah, still, the Greens got a few seats. That's good. Listen, the sweep by Reform, in my modest opinion, is really gonna depend on what type of change and how radical the change they get to put in place is going to be, right? So let's be honest. Yes, people are racist. Yes, people are bigoted. Yes, people hold reactionary opinions. Yes, people are tired by this and that and this and that. But the main reason fucking Reform pushed through is because, I want something to change, and these guys say it how it is, etc., etc. It's a very strong platform, but that platform dies if no change comes, right? All of this can be traced back to the political assassination of Jeremy Corbyn, the murder of actually left-wing Labour Party, and therefore the castration of the only possible British alternative to Toryism being dead. Basically turned them into Tories, which then needed a even more far-right alternative, because, when you start digging the hole, you got to dig it deeper. And deeper and deeper and deeper, because God forbid you start looking at systemic issues or, not the scary word, not class consciousness. Boom, I've been voting right-wing for the last 25 years, and everything has been going worse and worse and worse. And I'm not happy with it. So how should I vote? Oh, look at this party that's even more right-wing than the ones I voted before. This is definitely going to save me. The problem with the right-wing parties I voted in the past that made things worse is that they weren't right-wing enough. I am a normal NPC with no class consciousness. That's how. That's it. That's it. That is the mentality you have when somebody does not introduce you to class consciousness. It's going further and further and further right. Talking about normal people, not like, rabid ideological Nazis and fascists. Just guys who are, with all due disrespect, intellectually inadequate. Politically illiterate, that's usually the direction you go in. It's instinctual, it's contrarian, it's you just keep digging yourself in a deeper and deeper hole.
And what about Worcestershire? Redditch?
Did I ever tell you the definition of insanity? Exactly that. Exactly that. That is the life of a working class reactionary. Just doing the same stupid thing forever.
All right, breaking overnight. The United Arab Emirates says they are dealing with
complete destruction of the status quo by the radical wing of the reactionary British movement. Keep in mind that the Brits didn't go through the same process of ethnic cleansing that defined other nation states. The English believed themselves to be better than other British, but British is, British is whoever is under the crown, so the situation is conveniently blurred. Yes, that is the mother of all irony when it comes to the United Kingdom in particular, because it has the potential of being one of the quote-unquote most ethnically diverse and inclusive places on the planet, but the only reason the material conditions have been set for it to potentially be a very, very inclusive and actually integrated international, not internationalist, but international state is because it had done imperialism to such an extent that the sun never set on its shores. That's one of the funniest, not in a communist way, but just one of the funniest contradictions ever in general, where you have countries that are now considered relatively close-minded and bigoted towards people of other nations that are like confused when they see a type of person that they've never seen before, that are just ignorant of other cultures, etc., because they never had a very diverse population. Why did they not have a very diverse population? Why did not get exposed to other ethnicities, which could have allowed them to be more open-minded nowadays because of this shared experience? Because they did not do colonialism, because they did not do the same levels of imperialism. Almost every country on planet Earth has engaged in some sort of imperialism, but not on the level of conquest of especially Western European nations during the centuries, literally throughout the centuries, right? So this hilarious situation we sometimes find ourselves in is funny. It is massively ironic, where somebody who is more socially open-minded to people of other cultures because their material conditions allow them to be so, because their neighbors are people from different countries, can only do so because their country did incredibly fucked up things throughout history. Okay, that's why you have diverse neighbors to a very large extent. Okay, or because it is very wealthy. Usually through, we all know, expropriation of the wealth of other nations, which then led to higher immigration in your country. Which again, the more fucked up shit your country did, low key, the higher the chance people are immigrating into it. Therefore, the higher the chance you're exposed to other ethnicities. Therefore, the higher the chance that you are not ignorant when it comes to other people's cultures. You get what I mean? So somebody from Poland that never fucking invaded or enslaved motherfucking anybody, or somebody from fucking Czech Republic, or somebody from Albania might and do express like very close-minded, almost like early 20th century strange negative attitudes and ignorance towards people from different continents usually, right? And they do, and that bigotry should be addressed, and they should be, introduced to alternative sources of information so that they can grow in their wisdom. But I'm talking about the more meta situation here and the irony of it. The reason they are the way they are towards people of other ethnicities is because they've not been exposed to a lot of people of other ethnicities, and they've not been exposed to people of other ethnicities because their countries did not engage in wholesale colonial extraction and usually, chattel slavery, right? Isn't that crazy? You will be sitting with someone from the West who the only reason he knows a lot about Indians is because his great grandpa went and killed like 70 of them a day, sitting with a Macedonian, okay, whose great grandpa didn't even know Indians were a fucking thing because he was minding his own business in his own fucking village. And then this British guy is explaining to the Macedonian guy how he's so confused that the Macedonian guy is not as progressive thinking as he is. Isn't that funny, right? The direct correlation between lack of ignorance towards other ethnicities and the levels of colonial exploitation that your nation had done. Isn't that fucking wild? Isn't that wild? That's what? History has an incredible sense of humor. An incredible sense of humor. Anyways, let's talk about war.
The incoming missiles at the hands of Iran. Saudi Arabia is calling for de-escalation across the region after the United States says Iran targeted 3 American guided missile destroyers as they transited the Strait of Hormuz. U.S. forces then hit a number of Iranian military facilities in response. President Trump says it is just a trifle and that the back and forth is just a love tap.
They trifled with us today. We blew them away. They trifled. I call that a trifle. I'll let you know when there's no ceasefire. You won't have to know. If there's no ceasefire, you're not going to have to know. You're just going to have to
So irresponsible.
look at one big glow coming out of Iran. And they better sign their agreement fast.
With us now is Congressman Pete Aguilar from California. He's the 3rd-ranking Democrat in the House. And Congressman, we did just get a bit of breaking news. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who's in Italy, says he expects a response from the Iranians today on whatever this current peace proposal is. Generally speaking, how much
Engel's condition of the working class in England remains an evergreen text. Absolutely.
Choice. They see skyrocketing gas prices. They see a president who will go on TV and say whatever he needs to do to try to quell the crude market. They see rising costs that they're facing. 13 casualties through this war, hundreds more injured, billions of dollars have expended, and the administration has failed to articulate what their goals and objectives are. So that's what we see, and that's what the American people feel.
I should know gas prices ticked down a cent last night. They're still up over a quarter from last week, over 25 cents from last week.
And $1.50 since it started.
And $1.50 since the war began. But do you see progress? Do you feel as if it could be winding down?
It's hard to know because the administration says there's a ceasefire, yet we're still engaging in that. It's just their effort to evade oversight and accountability with the War Powers Act that Marco Rubio says is unconstitutional now, even though as a senator he felt a different way. So that's the difficulty that we see. It's tough to know what progress is because the administration hasn't articulated to the American people what the clear objectives and what the end game is. What does the president want to see out of this war? When will it end? When can we see relief? That's on the president, and he has failed to do that.
Oil prices are, there we go. You can see Brent crude up a tick, West Texas basically flat. This is after U.S. and Iranian forces exchanged fire yesterday. The UAE says it's dealing with incoming missiles. The oil, not a big move, frankly, with all the activity over the last 24 hours, indicating maybe the oil traders did not see it escalating further. With us now, CNN national and political analyst David Sanger. He's also a White House correspondent for the New York Times. Also here, former major staff director for the House Intelligence Committee, Michael Allen. David, I just want to start with you on the situation we've seen over the last 24 hours. We've seen U.S. strikes, right, on Iranian targets here and here in the Gulf. And we've seen, really, overnight, the UAE saying they're dealing with incoming missiles somewhere off the coast here. This doesn't feel much like a ceasefire with all the firing.
It doesn't, does it? It doesn't.
It sure doesn't. And, John, you heard the president last night say that it was just a trifle at one point. He said the U.S. response, which was somewhat vigorous when the Iranians attacked, understandably, was just a love tap. He is doing everything that he can to keep some kind of an agreement from going off the rails. And the reason's pretty clear. Not only is this now gone on for 10 weeks or so, but he leaves on Tuesday to go to China. And that trip has really been the bookmark for him for what he hoped would be the end of the war. He wanted to show up there having vanquished the Iranians, gotten them to give up their nuclear program, and of course reopen the strait, which supplies 30% or so of all the oil and
It's funny because this always used to work for the Americans.
gas.
Victory in war is an extremely subjective notion, but loss isn't. So if you have something to brag about, but have not experienced massive casualties, massive economic loss, or massive reputational loss, you can always spin it to a victory. Now, how much you can spin depends on how much people give a fuck and what influences the levels of giving a fuck in the United States, especially about a foreign intervention, about a war, about a thing over there killing people that I will never have to meet. The economic impact, yes. Good job. So, if the economic impact of the adventure abroad is not necessarily big, you can swallow any type of lie about the war, even if it's killing the position of your country abroad and domestically. But if you're feeling the economic impact on your own skin, then the lies don't really stick really well, do they? Okay. Trust me, we're winning as gas prices start increasing. It's very different to trust me, we're winning when you're not really feeling anything. When the nuggies start increasing in price, the lie doesn't sell as easily. So that's one of a primary contradiction that's just going to increase more and more and more and more and more as America's inability to stabilize domestic demand and supply whenever it goes adventuring declines.
Flowing into to China.
That's why my pitch is you will have a reformist reactionary.
He's going to show up right now, at least on current evidence, unless things turn in the next few days, with none of that accomplished.
Look, Michael, let me just ask you, since David brought it up, the president is going to China on this visit. How do the Chinese view the United States and view this situation now? David's paper, the New York Times, had a great headline today, basically quoting a Chinese official saying they see the U.S. as a superpower with a limp.
Yeah, I think the Chinese are probably looking at us struggle a bit and are wondering what the United States' plan is to get out of this. You know, I agree with what David said. I think the president is going out of his way to make sure that hostilities don't resume in a large way. Of course, there's some that they define as under the threshold. But honestly, I don't see how the president gets Iran to even discuss meaningful compromises unless he holds out the credible use of force and restores the safe passage mission that successfully got 2 ships through the straits earlier this week. It wasn't without cost, and it would still be a great risk, but it was the first direct attempt to negate...
Why, you just want permanent military engagement forever, for the rest of time, in the Strait of Hormuz, where the passage of every single ship is going to be guided by $1 billion American dollars worth of military equipment, in and out, 24/7, yeah. That's going to be a great fucking solution.
The Iranian leverage that they have over us and the world by controlling the straits. And I think ultimately that's going to be the only way out of this.
You know, David, Michael there is talking about this operation called Project Freedom, which was designed to get, vessels out of the straits. 2, a grand total of 2 were able to pass through there. But the costs seem to have been, and we're just learning this over the last 24 hours, David, a diplomatic rift with Saudi Arabia and with Kuwait, which didn't want any part of it. What does that tell you? Now, apparently, they're more amenable to the whole idea, but the fact that they didn't have them on board at the beginning, David, where does that leave things?
Well, the first thing it tells you...
Why would they? Why would they? Why would they? Literally, why would they?
...is that the administration is having a hard time learning the lessons from even the beginning of this war. You'll remember that the Saudis and the UAE were not given notice about when the war was going to begin. And the next thing they knew, the Iranians were taking it out on them, right? Launching missiles at their sites and their bases and their oil fields or oil production facilities. So he started in on this Project Freedom, which, as Michael says, is a much needed effort to get this open. but again, didn't do full consultation, it appears, on what this would be, how they might all participate, certainly how they'd prepare for it. And all of a sudden, they pulled the plug on it. And the president came up with another excuse for halting it. Those two ships, just to put it in perspective, before the war, about 140 ships transited. Show that he is somewhat in control of that strait, because as we heard from Secretary Rubio the other day, the situation that they're in.
Why would Iran ever give up the strait? It's their economic nuclear weapon. Now I know you're tired of me contextualizing this way, but it's a very important way of contextualizing it. Why? Their sovereignty is almost guaranteed. The only reason there are ceasefires, the only reason Iran is not being bombed 24/7, the only reason they are winning this war, the only reason why the whole world is actually intimidated by them once again, the only reason and the only method that they can guarantee their sovereignty is by utilizing this economic nuclear weapon, which is closing the strait. The only bet they had was whether they could logistically pull it off. Now they have proof that they can pull it off. Why would they open it? What's the pitch? Why? We're gonna nuke you? Okay, bet, nuke me. Suck my dick. That's what Tehran is saying. Okay, fuck you. Because you're gonna nuke me anyways if I open the strait. This is an immediate lot. Like, they cannot agree to a quote-unquote diplomatic solution in which they give up the only card that is stopping a country that has attacked them during negotiations 50 times, has lied to them in their eyes 50 times about the direction they want negotiations to go in. Why would they give up the one thing that's stopping the Americans from rape, murder, and pillage? Why would they open the gates to the barbarians? Right now they have a gate, and the barbarians have been lodging fucking arrows into their castle, but they haven't been able to get in. And now the barbarians are sending diplomats, and the diplomats are like, open the gate. And they're like, what the fuck? Why would we? Because that's how we're going to have peace. But last 20 times we talked and we were like, we're not, we're going to give you something. You immediately attacked. So why wouldn't you just immediately attack once we open the gate and there's no way for us to really defend ourselves anymore? What? So the whole scenario is completely absurd. There's no fixing this diplomatically unless the United States just gives up, basically.
Here's my take. Well into the second month of the US-Israeli war, it is worth taking stock of where things stand. Here's what things looked like in Iran and its neighborhood before the war began in late February. In June 2025, Iran's nuclear enrichment facilities had been, in President Trump's words, completely and totally obliterated by a 12-day bombing campaign by US and Israeli forces using American stealth bombers and 30,000-pound bunker-busting bombs. The head of Israel's defense forces agreed with Trump, saying,
Fareed is a chud. He's a clown. Yeah, that's why we're watching. He's not a clown, but he's, exceptionally NPC coded, right? So by watching him, we see into the mind of a algorithm follower. TLDR, for the current state of the war, negotiations are in progress. Negotiations that can lead to absolutely nowhere, because the one request that the Americans have from the Iranians is something the Iranians cannot give, because then the Americans will be able to annihilate them, and vice versa. The one thing that the Iranians are requiring from the United States would be embarrassing for Cheeto Man, so he cannot accept it. Well, they either need to find some sort of strange solution, or make gas prices go up by fucking 300% and start a 4 fucking year intervention into Iran itself. That's it. That's really it. Push. Come on, chat. Push. The fem train is almost out. We can see the head. To the head. It's going choo-choo. 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 It's slowly opening up. I can see the head, chat. I can see the head. Wait, I'm grabbing. Oh my God. Can I get out? Can I? Come. Oh my God! It is a fem train. It is beautiful. Come on, quickly, chat. Oh my God! We're experiencing problems. It's starting to disappear. Oh my God! It's starting to disappear. Unless we reach level 12, this fem train is gone. Oh Lord, no. Oh, Sasquatch helps. Okay, got out a little bit more. Oh no! Oh fuck! Shit! Fuck! There's blood everywhere. The head of this fem train. Oh my God! It's dying. Oh my God! There's blood everywhere. Ah! The fem train is dead. Rest in peace, fem train.